So are we ready?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
You want me to take this one?
Yeah, why don't you start this one?
All right,
start it.
We're here on season 2 of Design Of. Really awesome season so far. Here with Justin, as well as our guest this episode, Mike Erwin of Team RWB and the Positivity Project. Mike, why don't you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So my name is Mike Erwin, and as you mentioned, I am the founder and the chairman of the board for Team Red, White, and Blue.
Oh, chairman of the board.
And I am the founder and the president and the chairman of the board for the Positivity Project, both two nonprofits with very different missions, yet sort of come together in some places around this idea of positive psychology and making other people matter.
So, Mike, do you have any idea what our podcast is about?
A little bit. I know your brand is making creative matter. So.
Oh, Wills, high five there. Yeah.
More prepared than a few of our other guests.
Yeah.
Wills, I love Mike Erwin. He gets it. He's always upbeat, positive, and just, it seems like ready to charge into whatever the next thing is.
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed about him is that whenever he sees a challenge in the world, he doesn't look for someone else to try and fix it for him. He always jumps right in and tries to do something about it.
Yeah, whether that's building a team or him leading the charge.
I am the son of two police officers. My mom was actually the first female police officer on the Syracuse Police Department back in 1973.
Oh, hold on, so, and I mean this with utmost respect. So your mom's a badass.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's fantastic.
You can imagine, like, the first one on a police department.
Wow.
So neither of my parents went to college, but they were very focused on making sure that all of us, their children would have a focus on, getting to college and all that. And so I actually wanted to be a doctor my whole life. I wanted to be a doctor, and I was looking at Johns Hopkins and pre-med programs, and that's where I was going. And then one day in my sophomore year in high school, my mom came back and said, have you ever thought about going to West Point? And, and I knew, like, West Point from the commercials and all that. It was only about 3.5 hours away, and I had never really given it consideration, but I went and visited and left there absolutely spellbound by the place. And I said, I've got to either give this, I got to give it a shot. And so then I was, then again I go to West Point. I was focused on do my 4 years at West Point, go serve my 5 years to the country that is part of the requirement when you go to West Point. And then I woke up, on September 11th, 2001. And everything changed, 40 miles just south of me at West Point, down in New York City and out in Pennsylvania and D.C.
It's 8:52 here in New York. I'm Bryant Gumbel. We understand that there has been a plane crash on the southern tip of Manhattan. You're looking at the World Trade Center. We understand that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center. We don't know anything more than that.
And that completely changed everything for me. And so I ended up going to become an intelligence officer. I was probably going artillery until that happened, and I realized that intelligence is a really important field.
So what year were you at West Point?
I was a senior, so I was getting ready to graduate.
Okay.
So things were serious. Things were always serious there, but not like they were after 9/11.
How did it shift? Can you give us some understanding or depth of how did it shift after that
Just
day?
like the level of focus and intensity of everyone being like, wow, like, okay, we were training for our first 3 years there, 3 years and some change for my class. We assumed that the most dangerous thing we might have to do would be go to Bosnia or Kosovo, maybe South Korea, and serve on the DMZ. And everything changed real quick because we knew, our teacher was like, well, this is a terrorist group, and they're in Afghanistan, and there's going to be Iraq down. I mean, people could already look down the road and see that there was going to be deployments and combat in the future. So everyone got really focused, rather quickly, and so that changed, in many ways, the tone of everything that we were doing there. And again, we were continuing with our mission. Nothing changed in terms of that, but just we knew what we were going to be graduating into, and so naturally, I think the level of focus and intensity picked up.
Okay, let's try to imagine this for a second. You're a senior at West Point. You're thinking about your next steps. You're going to be doing some time in an Army base for a few years and then, kind of start living your life. And then you're about to be thrown into a real-life combat scenario.
And so then I went out and served in the Army, and I did 3 years at Fort Hood, Texas. Did a 1-year tour to Iraq. And then I did Afghanistan twice with 3rd Special Forces Group, again, as the battalion intelligence officer. So 3 deployments, a total of about 26 or 27 months spent downrange over those years between 2004 and 2009. And And after that is when I got picked up to go back and be a professor at West Point, an assistant professor, and went back there. But part of the program is that you go to graduate school for 2 years, and then you go teach at West Point for 3. Mm-hmm. So went to your beloved University of Michigan.
Yeah, so let's not talk about the University of Michigan yet. Can you give us, and I know this is probably unfair to ask you this to do very briefly, but can you give us a snapshot of what it was like on deployment, in either Afghanistan or Iraq? I'm sure there are some similarities, but they were pretty different. But
yeah, I mean, I think that I would summarize the experiences and the common experience with being that, hey, you're 7,000 miles from family, friends, and the familiar. So everything from the food is just not fresh, and it's different, and you're obviously so far away from your family and friends, and that really is the hardest part. I think it's not the danger, it's not necessarily even the stress of combat. It's being separated from everything that you've known, and being so far from family and friends, and knowing that they're worrying about you. So there's that kind of that dual directional sort of concern and stress that goes on. So.
What does an intelligence officer do? Like, what was your day to day?
Oh, geez. My job basically as an intelligence officer was I tried to, and by the way, some of these same skill sets carried over to my entrepreneurial self. But basically, you would look at all the signals intelligence, human intelligence, imagery intelligence, open source intelligence, all these various forms of INTs, as we call, short for intelligence. And you try to paint a picture for the commander based upon everything that you see. And say, okay, hey, we believe the insurgency is going to target this line of communication or this village, or that they're going to really try to make a big push and fire rockets against that base. So it was all about trying to see as much of the landscape as possible through reporting, and then paint as clear of a predictive picture as possible. So kind of like baseball, if you were right around 30% of the time, you were doing pretty good. And so that repetition of me doing that is served me very well as someone who is good in the startup culture, who kind of sees the various things out there and the opportunities and the gaps and the wait, I can do that, and so for me that's been a very helpful thing, all that training I got as an intelligence officer in the Army. I left Afghanistan in July of 2009, and I was in Ann Arbor in August of 2009. So you can imagine the absolute culture shock, of Michigan. Now, while we have a fair amount of troops come into the military from there, there's no active duty military bases in the state of Michigan, and so there's just an overall, I wouldn't say it's not that people don't care, in a place like Ann Arbor, but it's the wars and what was going on in Iraq and Afghanistan was certainly not front and center of their mind. And so for me to go there and to be removed from that situation and to go to, to a town where, it was just drastically different than what I was used to in Fort Bragg, in the Fort Bragg and Fort Hood areas, it was tough. So the analogy I use all the time is like a fish out of water. So when I got there, I really was, I went to my classes, I did my studying. I had my sister and brother-in-law who were there. He was also at graduate school, and that was great. But certainly in terms of the sense of identity, I remember feeling to myself saying, wow, I'm still in the Army and I'm still getting paid to go to graduate school. I can't imagine having taken the uniform off and now not having a job and how difficult that would be. And so that really kind of was the genesis of Team Red, White, and Blue. After my first 2 semesters as a graduate student, I started to think and wonder, I wonder how veterans are transitioning. And I started to see some soldiers that used to serve for me, serve with me and be on my team, and saw them having some troubles and struggles making the transition. And so I started to dig deeper into the issue, and I went to the VA hospital in Ann Arbor, and I asked, hey, if I were to build an organization that could raise money and raise awareness around veterans issues, what do veterans need? And that's when I met with a social worker there named Jen Lohr, and she basically said, hey, veterans really just need someone to talk to. A lot of veterans, more than anything, they just need people to connect with on a personal level. And so that became the genesis of the organization. But at the very beginning, most people don't know this, but everyone associates us with physical fitness now. Yet in the very beginning, we were about personal relationships, and the physical fitness component was merely to raise awareness and then to raise money, to help support those personal relationships. But it wasn't until about 16 months in that we realized, wait a minute, people see us out there running and they really identify us with doing the running and the physical fitness piece. And wait a minute, we can still do the camaraderie and the personal relationships piece through physical fitness. And so it didn't start that way though. You know, so
let's just back up for a second. So you're at your grad studies were focused on what?
Yes, I was in the personality PhD program in personality psychology, and I studied specifically on positive psychology and leadership.
Okay. And did you see some need or connection there in the veteran community?
So yeah, so I mean definitely. So I mean when it came down to it and connecting the dots to what I studied in graduate school in positive psychology with my conversations at the VA hospital, you know, it was clear that notion of other people matter and the importance of social relationships in your life, that's something that I think almost all of us can benefit from. That there's very few people who say, I don't need another good relationship. You know, it's generally speaking, you know, people like to meet new people, especially people that they respect and that they like. So really that's what we wanted to become. We wanted to become that bridge to help veterans, especially those that were transitioning and struggling and perhaps going down the road of isolation, to connect with people in their community who were willing to spend time and get to know them.
What we really love about Mike and the work that he does is that he has a foundational passion to improve the lives of people whose experience he deeply understands. And not only does he have this passion, but he puts it into action even when his personal stakes are high.
So you have this vision, you see this need in the veteran community. What were your first couple steps to kind of create the organization?
Yeah.
Who did you partner with? What was that like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, so we, you know, really it was March of 2010. I remember because we filed the IRS 1023, which is the paperwork for tax exempt status, when my wife was 38 weeks pregnant with our first kid. So I look back at that, kind of still scratch my head like I'm doing right now, saying like, wow, we did that again? Really? 38 weeks? Like, why? I mean, I remember thinking to myself, like, getting a lot of advice from family and friends, being like, why are you doing this? Like, you're about to become a dad. Isn't that enough like new excitement for you? And so I really can't like pin my finger on exactly what it was, but you know that was a big part was just sort of like the legal process of forming the company, and then turning it into a nonprofit. But yeah, I mean this partnering up with Rule 29 was one of the very first things we did, and I got introduced to Larry through a mutual friend, and turned out Larry was at a point in his career and his life where he was looking to give back, and so Larry joined the board of directors, and he said, hey, I work with a lot of different people on the creative side and like the whole digital side for my job, and I really think that we should have a talk with Rule 29. They're the absolute best that I've worked with, and so we had a meeting obviously in person, but then we also had a phone call when we were down in Larry and I were in New York City together. We had a phone call with you for about an hour and a half, and he just kind of said, hey, just talk to me your thoughts about the organization. I want to hear words. I want to hear help me sketch this out in my mind. And yeah, that was absolutely one of the first things we did was establishing our brand, and that was because of Larry Olson. Really, no one else on our board had a clue about how important that was, and that was Larry doing that. And I still look back at some of I still have some of the files saved from the multiple options of some of the logos, and I just think to myself how different it would be. One of them is the eagle, but without the eagle's head. It was just the wings. Yeah. And it's oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Everything is so centric around the eagle now that it's incredible. Yeah. And so I think back to that and just marvel at the evolution of the creative process and how you establish your brand and what it can do for you. And it's remarkable.
So it's funny, one of our, I don't think it was that same phone call, but our second phone call, it seemed like every week you were pinging me with some incredible opportunity. Do you remember when you called me about the Today Show or something? Yeah. I remember you were like, hey, we need a website and a bunch of stuff. I'm on the Today Show next week. Can we make that happen? And I was just like, what? Yeah. No, we can't make that happen. And then I think the week after you're in USA Today, and things were
really fast.
Up steam,
That was in 2011. So that big window of PR explosion was mid-May, right around Memorial Day weekend, was the story on the Today Show of 2011.
And joining me is Brennan Mullaney, the Mid-Atlantic Regional Director for Team Red, White, and Blue. Brennan, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
I'm happy to be here.
So what is Team Red, White, and Blue?
And then there was the USA Today article, which is leading up into the 10th anniversary of September 11th in September. And so I had been doing a couple of other, so I was making a big sort of push on PR to try to get the word out about what Team Red, White, Blue is doing. And as I look back at it now with much more clarity than, obviously when you're going through it, you're swimming through it, and it's not making none of it really makes sense. Which is why, I'm kind of back there now with the Positivity Project, although I've got much more experience now in my rucksack. But I look back at it, I'm like, wow, yeah, I just kind of like run around and just like trying to get like journalists to tell the story of like what we're doing, and I didn't even really know what we were doing. I knew like.
Well, I remember we were having production meetings, and I think I told you on the phone call, I'm like, Mike, this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Organizations would kill to have this exposure.
I remember this.
And you're like, what are you talking about? This is how it works. Yeah.
Wait, this is most people don't get on the Today Show.
Yeah. Mike, can you help paint the picture for those who may not know why an organization like Team RWB needed to exist? Like, what was the current veteran scenario or options that they had in the country at this time?
Yeah, so to me, I think a big part, again, so where we've come to, the focus on physical activity and social connection is very clear now. In the very beginning, the focus was primarily on social connection, and especially for veterans who were struggling. And so what we started out with was sort of a more narrow approach, and we realized that this idea of social connection and helping people, especially helping veterans to reintegrate, it was something, a need that a lot of veterans, especially those who had served in Iraq or Afghanistan, were experiencing. So part of just like the differences, within the culture, so there was the American Legion and the VFW, which are powerhouse organizations. They've been around forever, and there's just been this, I think, a bit of, period where the average age from a lot of their members, they're older, and so a lot of veterans are coming back, and they were not necessarily interested in the same things, right? Our parent, you're just different from your parents because you grow up in different times and all that. So really for veterans, I think a big part was they wanted to belong, and so they had some of those options like the Legion and the VFW. But what we started to see was there was this big demand for a focus around physical fitness. And I look back at it and I think back to myself now, like, I can't believe no organization like this existed before. It was just seemingly so obvious because physical fitness has always been a part of the military culture. Yeah. And, to basically continue that on and say, hey, we're going to give veterans an opportunity to stay active, stay connected with people in their community, to run yoga, CrossFit, rock climb with fellow veterans and people who maybe have not been in the military but want to get to know them. It's just such a no-brainer, and I really feel like, from the broadest sense of it, that, sometimes people say, oh, like here, wow, like how do you come up with this amazing idea for Team RWB and Blue? I'm like, if you look at it, really, it's not all that amazing of an idea. Like the execution has been so strong because we've had so many people who have poured their heart and soul into the organization as volunteers and as leaders, and we've had an incredible cadre of leaders. A lot of veterans who have served in Iraq or Afghanistan who have taken like a little bit of inspiration and a little bit of guidance, and they've just gone. Yeah. But in terms of like the idea here, this is not like, someone saying like, oh, someone like once say we need to put someone on that moon up there. You know what I mean? Like that's like whoa. Like what we've done really, as I look back at it, we really have filled a niche that has been open for quite some time. And we've been able to build this decentralized organization to do it.
So basically, those veterans are coming back from active deployment from Afghanistan and Iraq. They were coming back. They didn't really see an option out there for them, if I'm hearing you right. Yep. And they were also dealing with, like, what is some of the current veteran scenarios? So, PTSD, TBI. Like, what are some of the things that you experienced a lot?
Sure. Yeah. So I think that so one from PTSD, so post-traumatic stress disorder, is definitely something that a lot of veterans came back with the estimates, depending on what study you're looking at, are somewhere between 12, and 20% of veterans, have some form of post-traumatic stress, and that's could come from being involved in an ambush, a roadside bomb, a rocket attack on a base. So we know that there certainly are a fair number of veterans, who have experienced issues with post-traumatic stress. There's also the traumatic brain injury. So from being near the concussion, to suffering a concussion or being near the shock waves of a big explosion. We know especially all the roadside bombs that were going off in Iraq, especially in 2005, 6, and 7, that a lot of veterans, still, have signs of that, that brain trauma and that brain damage. So, we know that our organization, by one, helping with the social support, but also the physical activity, but both of those are proven ways to help to push back against, post-traumatic stress and, and TBI. Again, as long as the TBI is not too severe.
So 2012, we're kind of there in the life of the organization.
Yep.
And, how many people, do you remember how many people were involved around 2012 in Team RWB?
Yes, I mean, to me, so really, as I look at Team RWB, I kind of see it in two phases. So the first one was when I was the volunteer executive director, and that was from, March of 2010 until January of 2013. And up to that point, it was really all about kind of finding our way, figuring out our impact, better understanding the veteran community and the veteran need, and figuring out and building our strategy to be able to scale. And we had maybe like 5,000 people in the organization in the first couple of years, and then I stepped down, and we hired Blaine Smith as the executive director. He came in, and right here in Chicago, in January 2013 at the Pritzker Military Library, I sort of said, hey, I'm stepping down. I'm kind of going to my role and focusing on being the chairman of the board. But Blaine is now leading it, and really that's when the organization has started to really take off. We had a strategy. We worked with a professional consulting firm that did a whole bunch of analysis for us, pro bono, and we were able to then build a growth plan and to more effectively communicate to the world what we were doing, more effectively raise money to be able to hire people to to get the snowball really going. So, and since then, really, we brought in 25 of our volunteer leaders into Chicago for that conference, and since then it's 3 years and 1 month later, so 37 months later, we're approaching 100,000 members. Actually, like next week, we'll hit 100,000 members, and we're about 170 chapters total across the nation, and some across the world, and England and Japan, and a few other places, and. It's incredible to think about the impact, because it's not just that we've got the numbers of growth, but we also have got, our research has shown that the impact that the organization is having on people is profound in terms of their mental well-being, their physical activity levels, so therefore their physical health, and also we're empowering a lot of veterans to be leaders in their communities, which is ultimately, if you want to look at this from the most macro of positions, our nation, I believe, is really in desperate need of more leadership, and we really believe that by investing in and giving the opportunity to lead for our veterans at the community level, that we are not only demonstrating to America what those men and women can do as leaders, but it's also giving that formative leadership experience to those Team RWB leaders in the chapter at the chapter level. And I think that over the long run, that's the long play, is what will those men and women do who in 2013 or 15 or in 2016 are leaders in Team RWB Chicago, Team RWB Syracuse, and where did they go on because of how their experience as a leader in the organization changes them and elevates the expectation that they have on themselves.
So out of those 100,000, are those all veterans?
No, so that's a key part, to our strategy, is that, we are 30%, and by design, we are inclusive, and that includes, civilian or non-veteran members, and we have 30% non-veteran members, so about 30,000 are, people who've not been in the military, but they might know people who have, or they might have like a grandfather who served in World War II, or they might just want to get involved personally and give back, and here's a way to get involved in through Team Red, White, and Blue. So that's a huge part of our strategy. We have not by design aimed for a certain percentage or a certain balance, but it's just sort of balanced out over the past 2 years. It's 70-30, 70% veteran and active duty, and 30% non-veteran.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So before we move on into your next venture, tell us about some of the partners that have come alongside Team Red and Blue, just from a business standpoint, or from a major support.
Yeah, it's been amazing. So we our biggest supporter right now is Nike. They have been huge in providing shirts for us and providing a lot of our apparel, and that's been enormous for us. And so with the strength of their brand, it's obviously a really big deal. Microsoft, again, another really strong, powerful brand. They are our sponsor of our Old Glory Relay. and which will be going in its third year. This year going from basically Seattle to Tampa, so all the way down the West Coast and then all the way through the southern part of the country. So that's going to be...
And that's every day someone's running, holding the flag, they're running some leg of...
Absolutely. Carrying that flag on either... This year there might be opportunity for you to go out there and do some biking. I think there's going to be some biking opportunities in New Mexico and West Texas out there between El Paso and San Antonio. It's like 400 miles of no man's land. So I think I think we're gonna end up putting it on a bike for some of those days. But yeah, so I think that those are our two probably biggest partners, and we've got incredible partners from the foundation standpoint. Bernie Marcus Foundation, founder of Home Depot, Howard Schultz Family Foundation, founder and CEO of Starbucks, and the Bob Woodruff Foundation. So we've got some really great partners. But on the corporate side, ConocoPhillips continues to be a big supporter of ours, but certainly none bigger right now than Nike and Microsoft in terms of what they're doing, to help us, reach more veterans. So after I transitioned out of the military, I have moved on and I have just launched another nonprofit organization here a few months ago, as you know, called the Positivity Project. We're a nonprofit focused on helping children, especially in like the kindergarten through 8th grade age range, to see the good in themselves and each other. So we're basically partnering with K through 8 schools and helping them to transform their character education programs, leveraging the 24 character strengths and the research that comes from positive psychology, which I studied in graduate school. And so if you look at that, there's 24 character strengths that exist, and we're basically making a character strength of the week throughout the entire year, and doing a deep dive with the students, starting as young as kindergarten, and talking about things like perseverance and not giving up, and curiosity and gratitude and love. So that right now is the new focus, and we're off to a very fast start. A lot of opportunities, I think, to impact. And as we get out there and see more about the current state of character education in the United States, we really feel there's a big opportunity to make a big impact on a lot of kids by bringing this focus and the specific language and knowledge about some of these words, because words count, like words matter. And so the more effectively we can get younger Americans knowing what these words are and how to see it in themselves and identifying it in each other, it can actually have a pretty big cumulative aggregate effect. And we're at the beginning stages right now, but it's exciting.
That sounds incredible. But why do this? I mean, you're about to approach 100,000 people on Team Red, White, and Blue, which is incredible. Why start from scratch again and instead of going to do something else?
So I think for me, really part of this is when you look back, who I studied under at graduate school, Dr. Chris Peterson. He was one of the co-founders of the field of positive psychology, and he died of a heart attack in 2012, October of 2012, and he was actually slated to come out and speak at West Point at the end of the month before he died unexpectedly. And I sort of knew back then, like, hey, I'm going to be something I need to do needs to help carry on his legacy, around positive psychology. And Team Red, White, and Blue certainly focuses on positive psychology and on relationships and all that, but on the specific 24 character strengths that come from positive psychology that Chris basically wrote in the classification system from the academic perspective. I mean, it's a really powerful way for me to be able to carry on something that he was so passionate about and that he knew could make a big difference in the world. I mean, the guy hated flying, yet you'd find him flying to China and to South America and to Saudi Arabia to go give talks or to give and lead seminars on positive psychology, because he was one of the founding fathers of positive psych. So
help us understand. Can you help define a little bit what positive psychology means? Because I think I get it just from the words, of course, but can you give more depth to it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the easiest way to package and to understand positive psychology is it's the study of what goes right in life. It's the study of what is good in life. And so if you look at the history of psychology, not to get too academic, but really psychology as a science didn't take off until post-World War II. It was actually starting to gain steam in the late 1930s. Then World War II came along and people were like, Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, how is this possible? And so a lot of the focus in the field of psychology starting in 1945 and really until 1998, when positive psychology was defined as a science, was on the deviant, on the evil, on the how explaining and trying to understand, what's wrong in life, what's wrong with people, if you will. And so positive psychology is essentially the flip side of that coin, which says, look, it's important to study what goes wrong and the challenges that people face, and it's important to study schizophrenia and personality disorders and narcissism, but time out, what about all the people out there who are doing well? What about all the people out there who are thriving and flourishing? Are we not studying them? You understand? Because maybe we can take from them what they're doing well and make that generalizable to the public. And so that's when it became, a science. So that's really what it is. It's studying the good. So you study positive institutions like schools and churches and teams and companies, like Rule 29.
Yeah, boy.
It's studying character strengths within people. It's studying positive emotions. And so it's a matter of studying all these various things that sort of comprise who we are, how we feel, and organizations that enable good for the community and for the world, which is a little subjective, but it's relatively black and white what's good, and so it's studying those more to understand them better, to help generate and replicate more of that.
Use us right now to kind of tell those who are listening, the 18 people who are listening right now. No, I'm kidding. Hopefully a lot more than that. No. Allow us to share, how can people get involved in the future? What's your current plan?
Yeah, so right now we have partnered with just one school, but again, this is different. Team Red, White, and Blue has been advancing veteran by person, it's been a person by person advance, and we have about 100 people signing up per day. Word of mouth, has been really fueling that growth. But when you go in with the Positivity Project, we're partnering school by school by school. So the building blocks here are not one little Lego piece, it's like Lego blocks. So the building blocks of what we're doing here are going to be much deeper and much more profound, just because there's an entire school already of 35, 40, 45, 50 people between the teachers, the counselors, the principal, the staff. If they buy into this, that they're helping to take these 40, or let's just say 45, or 50 people from the school, adults from the school, are pouring this goodness and this positive energy and this focus on character strengths and this focus on other people mattering into kids at a young age who are in their very formative years, which the research shows, moral development, so much development takes place in that, age 6 to age 12 window. And then we pouring these character strengths into them and this focus on other people. The aggregate effect of doing this, and then, oh, by the way, associating it with a logo, right? We know how powerful logos are in terms of the visual. It's pretty incredible to think of how we can actually, truly, I think we can actually move the needle for a lot of kids who spend time in class thinking about, and they might not hear about perseverance at home, but they're in there and they're hearing about it for a whole week straight, and then they're hearing about love, and then they're hearing about kindness and gratitude, forgiveness, and they're hearing about all these 24 character strengths throughout the course of the year. In kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third. By the time they are on into junior high school, when we know things start getting a lot dicier, and there's a lot more peer pressure and a lot more bullying and troublemaking, we really feel that we have the ability to sort of help to lay that foundation. Obviously, with parents and coaches out there as well. I don't think that this is going to do all of it, but I do think we have the ability to actually, over time, influence these kids in a really profound way.
My favorite character strength is bravery. My favorite character strength is kindness.
Curiosity, because I like to ask a lot of questions and find answers to things.
We have the ability to, through the Positivity Project, to help kids to have this deeper understanding of character that is really rooted in the research and the science of positive psychology. So people will be able to get involved by letting their school, if they've got kids or if they're involved in education, encouraging their kids or these people to go to the website, learn more information about what it means to partner with the Positivity Project. We've already got 13 schools signed up to partner starting in this 2016-17 school year. I really think we could easily probably have 40 to 50 schools doing the Positivity Project by by September. And then after that, I think the sky's the limit, really, because the proof will be in the pudding in terms of the impact that we're having, which we've already seen that, based just even, from the infographic and all the data, it's clear. We're helping kids be more confident in who they are. We're strengthening relationships in the classroom. We're making them feel more connected to their school. Teachers are learning more about themselves. Teachers are learning more about their kids. There's all these effects that we're having simply by focusing on a little bit of character, a little bit at a time.
So we can point people to your website.
Yep.
And they could make the Positivity Project aware to their school, district, school, whatever else. And then do you also need financial support?
Yeah,
like donations,
absolutely. Donations,
like
yep, absolutely.
So you're going to be a 501c3?
Yep,
and, okay.
Absolutely. Tax deductible donations. So there's ways to invest that way, from foundation level, from a personal level. And obviously, just like the power of Team Red, White, and Blue, we've learned this about the power of word of mouth. So, sharing and going on and liking the Facebook page and sharing. We've already got incredible, almost 3,000 people who are a lot of very actively engaged members of our Facebook page and in the community that we're building around people who are focused on seeing the good in life and seeing, especially in kids, helping kids to see the good in themselves. It's so critical. So, yeah. Go to posproject.org for more information.
I love it. Well, Mike Erwin, thank you for your time. I've never seen you sit in one space this long.
It's rare.
It's tough, right? It's tough.
It's rare, but I've been here for 30 minutes now. It's good.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, my man.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike.
Absolutely.
All right, that's it, everybody.
Here at Rule 29, we are very excited to be working on some new projects for both the Positivity Project and Team RWB. So please go to their websites, teamrwb.org or theposproject.org. That's posproject.org. And just want to thank big time Mr. Mike Erwin. He is so busy and kind of traveling all over the country. We are really appreciative of him giving us a few minutes. And actually, he took Wills and I and the rest of the team through the Positivity Project workshop, which was amazing. So please check that out.
And a big thanks to the Positivity Project for sponsoring this episode. And be sure to check out Team RWB's new podcast, Eagle Nation, available on iTunes.
And we also want to thank Rule 29 for giving us the space to work on this project.
And also a huge thanks to Steve Wick, our audio engineer. Justin, he's like a positive compliment from a good friend.
So true.
When you're finished, why don't you drop by the yacht club?
Thank you, sir. All right.
And we also want to thank all of you for listening. Look for the next Design Of episode dropping in the next few weeks. We can't wait for you to hear it.
And please follow us on Twitter at Design Of Podcast. See you next episode.